The Beast of Jersey, the man who terrorized an island in the 1960s and 1970s, the small island of Jersey in the Channel Islands was gripped by fear. A masked predator roamed the streets at night, breaking into homes and brutally attacking women and children. His reign of terror lasted for over a decade, and his disturbing methods left the islanders terrified and authorities baffled. Known as the Beast of Jersey, Edward Paynell was eventually captured, but the horrific details of his crimes continue to haunt the island to this day. A decade of terror. The terror began in 1957, when reports of a masked man breaking into homes and attacking people began to surface. Over the years, the attacks grew more frequent and more brutal. The assailant would enter homes late at night, often when the victims were asleep, and assault them in horrifying ways. His victims were primarily women and children, and he seemed to take pleasure in the fear and pain he caused. The Beast of Jersey was particularly terrifying, because of the elaborate disguise he wore during his attacks. He donned a grotesque rubber mask, resembling a twisted human face, and wore a long, dark coat and gloves. This disturbing appearance added to the fear he instilled in his victims. Many described him as a figure straight out of a nightmare. During his attacks, he would tie his victims up, often using rope or cords, and physically assault them for hours. His cruelty knew no bounds, and he would leave his victims deeply traumatized both physically and mentally. The police were unable to catch him for years, and his ability to disappear into the night after each attack made him seem almost supernatural. The mysterious attacker. For years, the authorities struggled to identify the attacker. Despite the growing number of victims and the fear spreading across the island, the Beast of Jersey seemed untouchable. He would strike without warning and leave no significant clues behind. Many of his victims were too young or too traumatized to give accurate descriptions of him, and the grotesque mask he wore made identification nearly impossible. The police increased patrols, and many families on the island took extra precautions to protect themselves from the beast. Parents refused to let their children out at night, and people installed extra locks on their doors and windows. But despite these measures, the attacks continued. The Beast of Jersey seemed to revel in the chaos and fear he created. His attacks were methodical, and he always seemed to evade capture. The police were growing desperate, as the island's residents demanded answers. It wasn't until a chance traffic stop years later that the Beast of Jersey was finally unmasked. The capture of the beast in July 1971, after more than a decade of terrorizing the island, Edward Paynell was finally caught by accident. He was pulled over by police for running a red light in his car. Inside the vehicle, officers discovered a horrifying array of items that left no doubt as to Paynell's true identity. In the car, police found the grotesque rubber mask he wore during his attacks, along with a long, dark coat, gloves, and homemade wrist restraints. There were also ropes and other materials used to tie up his victims. The evidence was overwhelming, and Paynell was immediately arrested. It soon became clear that Edward Paynell, a well-known local man who had been involved in charity work and was even known for dressing up as Santa Claus for local children, was the Beast of Jersey. His public persona as a friendly, helpful figure in the community had masked his dark, sadistic side. Paynell was brought to trial and convicted of multiple counts of rape, indecent assault, and other crimes. The court heard disturbing testimony from his victims, who described the terrifying mask and the horrific assaults they had endured. Paynell showed no remorse for his crimes, and his cold, calculating nature shocked everyone who knew him. The aftermath: Edward Paynell was sentenced to life in prison, bringing an end to his reign of terror. However, the psychological scars left on his victims and the island as a whole were deep. For over a decade, the people of Jersey had lived in fear of the beast, never knowing when or where he would strike next. To this day, the case of the Beast of Jersey remains one of the most disturbing in British criminal history. The fact that Parnell was able to evade capture for so long, despite being a public figure in the community, adds to the horror of the case. His ability to lead a double life, appearing as a kind and charitable man while committing heinous crimes at night, is a chilling reminder of the evil that can lurk behind seemingly normal facades. This true story of Edward Parnell, the Beast of Jersey, is one of the most disturbing examples of a predatory criminal hiding in plain sight. His reign of terror over the island of Jersey and the grotesque nature of his crimes make him one of the most feared figures in British criminal history.